What's going on, guys? It's been a while since we've done one of these, but welcome to the mental health checkup on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I will be your host for this evening. Joining me for the first time in quite a bit, we've got Kiona.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
And we've got Josh.
Hey guys, it's just me solo this time. Right now, Crystal is in the other room having a bit of a girls' night, and oddly enough, I think it's fitting for what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and we got a stranger in the house. I believe his name is Checkup Krebiel.
Yeah, I have no idea where I am. Who are you people?
No, but seriously, Jacob, it is nice to have you back on this episode. A little disclaimer before we get started: none of us here are mental health professionals. We're not licensed psychologists or anything. We're just a couple dudes who are basically just exposing ourselves as frauds or just unloading all of our insecurities, our anxieties, etc. But the point of these mental health checkups is to provide some solidarity, to let our audience know that it's okay to not be okay. And
yeah, indeed.
A lot of things have happened that are very not okay. Kiona, let's just start with you. What have you been up to since our last checkup?
Oh man, when was the last one that we did of these anyway? I think that was before I broke my knee into pieces.
I think your last episode was like on the mental health was the separating the art from the artist one.
Oh geez, wow. Has it really been that long?
That was a while ago. Okay, so yeah, so basically I kind of mentioned this on Arcade about a couple weeks ago, or maybe 1 week ago. I don't know. Time has no meaning anymore for me. So essentially what happened to me was that I basically had a bad fall in my house, and I wish it was cool or something. Like I wish I was trying to save some people on a bus or something, and that's how I got injured. But no, that wasn't how it happened. I basically just slipped and fell and landed on my right leg and snapped my patella in two. The patella is the kneecap, and basically snapped it in two. I had to go to the hospital. I had to get surgery. It cost a bunch of money. So now I am poor, and basically, I'm stuck in this chair here for the next however long it takes. It's going slowly because it's rough. But I basically haven't done too much since then. So it's just been sitting in this chair and sleeping in this chair, and that's it. It's hard to mobilize, and I don't really want to that much because I just want this thing to heal up as quickly as it can. But it's done a number on me in terms of mental health, and it's done a number like I haven't felt this depressed in a long time about things. And this kind of helpless and aimless. But getting back to the podcast has been nice. Starting up our YouTube channel, shameless plug.
I was gonna say that's very very cool that we're actually moving forward with that.
Yeah. And it's been a very stationary life lately, and so for me it's been really affecting me, and I just haven't really accepted the fact that my leg is busted, and I just have to try to heal it and try to accept that it happened to me, and I'm sitting here going why God, why? But that doesn't do shit. So you got to just kind of accept it, heal, move on, do the best that you can with what you have. And I'm slowly starting to come to that realization. But yeah, so that's been the hardest struggle in my life, which is I don't want to it's probably the hardest thing that I've had to deal with personally since, like, maybe since a long time. So yeah, I'll just say that. But take it a day at a time, and like I said, thank you guys for having me back, and for just just kind of giving me a goal to work towards in a way with these podcasts, and it's been fun getting
Well,
back with you guys.
like I said, once a renegade, always a renegade. And on this outlet, the same honestly could be said about Jacob.
Exactly.
Now you've been gone for a minute. What have you been
Yeah.
up to since then?
Well, I've been more accepting of the fact that I have autism. That for a long time, like, it was something that I saw as something I had to repress. That I had to, if I wanted to have a successful life, that it would have to be something I would have to kind of hide, like mask, essentially. Like, when I come in terms that a lot of my flaws, what may be seen as character defects on the outside, are just a fundamental part of who I am, and it's just, it's something that I'm embracing the fact that my autism is a strength rather than a weakness. It can be seen as that. I've joined a local autism group, actually, called Puzzle Partners, where I get to do activities with other people on the spectrum. And one thing that's been cool is that I've actually been helping students, like college students who are studying autism, or conducting studies of that. I've actually been paid actually to give them insight into my experiences as an autistic person. I'm becoming more and more. I've realized that my real goal in life, my real purpose in life, is to give a voice to autistic people, including my own. To help remove the stigma that a lot of people have against it, trying to challenge preconceptions about them. And it's been something that I'm glad that I'm finally accepting the fact, like, that my own problems, that there are some flaws you have that are just, no matter how hard you try, and I do try to do the best I can to to try to to try to be aware of how I should behave in society, of what I should say, of what I should how I should conduct myself. And there are times when my autism just kind of makes that difficult. Sometimes I just can't help but fall back onto habits that are part and parcel with autism. And I become accept that there's some things, it's just not my fault. Sometimes it's just simply not my fault. And I'm aware of the fact that, without meaning to, I can come across as tactless or rude to some, and I try to, it's just unavoidable sometimes. That's just what I'm more accepting of. And all I ask is, even as I try to do better, even as I try to improve, even as I try to learn from my mistakes, that people don't assume the worst in me. Because from my experiences with other people on the spectrum, the activities I partake in them, they show the struggles that they go through, whether it's anger issues, or just not being aware of social cues, not acting appropriately in public. Sometimes I've learned that I can't judge other people, just like I can't judge other people for how they act. And there's like, I wouldn't just like I wouldn't want to be judged by how, like, I don't want people to assume the worst in me when I make a mistake. I shouldn't assume the worst in other people, especially autistic people, because the thing about being on the spectrum is that no two autistic people are the same. No autistic people are the same. It's called a spectrum for a reason. And it's just, it's like I'm becoming more proud of myself, just being aware that my flaws are what make me human, and that what make me are just a product of like this beautiful mind that other autistic people share. And just finally being proud of who I am, and after being told the entire childhood that I'm just a bad kid, like that I don't try hard enough to fit into society, that my autism is something to keep in check, and it's just I'm learning how to love myself more. I'm learning how to, I've been reading books on the subject. I've actually picked up some books from other like members, like prominent people on the spectrum, like Temple Grandin. I bought her book. The biologist, like she's an animal rights activist who's actually, because of her autism, she's actually been an innovator like in the animal husbandry industry, like, and she's actually advocated for the more humane treatment of livestock. And I've actually, other books I have are The Reason I Jumped, from this incredible kid from Japan, this nonverbal kid. Actually, his name is Naoki. His name is Naoki Higashida. He's nonverbal kid again. Actually, it's called The Reason I Jump, and it's Look Me in the Eye by John Elder Robison. And it's just, it's been enlightening. It really has, to hear of the incredible people from their mouths even about autism, and how they deal with it and how they want to be seen. And it's been a journey, it's self-discovery. And I finally found the secret of how to just seeing the stuff that I used to be ashamed of actually being something that I can be proud of. And I want to be an activist. Like, I understand, like being an autistic person, like a fundamental part of who I am is I believe very strongly in social justice. I believe strongly, and I become more determined than ever to help people with autism, because I know that there are women and people of color who are not as diagnosed as often, who have their own struggles as well, and also the LGBTQ community, for instance. They all have their struggles that come with the autistic struggles, and I just want to do everything I can to help them out as much as I can. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. It's about, these past few years have been about me finding my ultimate purpose in life.
Honestly, I gotta say, I'm incredibly proud that you've come to this realization about yourself.
Thanks, Mike.
It's not easy to learn to love yourself. I know it can be kind of a cliche. You have to learn to love yourself. And yes, ultimately I agree, but I also think it takes time. You're not going to learn that lesson overnight.
Because and that honestly, you have to love yourself first before you love other people. To find the values that you have value, that you have worth. so you can recognize the worth in others.
Especially like, for that kind of process, the best thing that helps always is a very strong support system, you know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Just,
support
you
system.
know, having people to talk to, or even just like even one friend or a few friends or family or anything, just people that you can at least confide in those moments where it gets especially hard.
And yeah, I've been taking advertising classes too. Hopefully that'll be beneficial to the site.
Yeah, at this point, at this point, we could honestly use all the help that we can get.
Yeah, I already came up with the slogan, so
Hey, and we continue using it in everything we do, whether it's
yeah,
here or on Brock's channel, Organoid
Yeah.
Zero.
yeah. Oh, also, I was at a Comic-Con convention, and one thing I helped with Brock's channel is I actually had a Ruby voice actress, Barb. I forgot her full name, but I had her record a message for his
Oh,
series.
that's
Where
cool.
when you
Barbara
guys do,
Dunkelman.
yeah, when you guys do a fresh takes on Ruby, he said he's gonna use that.
Nice. Before I get into myself, Josh, why don't you go next?
Oh man. Well, I guess the biggest thing is to say, where do I start? Because I'm not gonna lie, since the last time that I was on one of these, which was quite a while, even before, I think even before Kiona was last on one, it's been no secret that I've been kind of away from the site for a while, just participating in podcasts and I even gave Jacob the role of more or less the managing editor for this time. And I gotta say, Jacob, you've been doing great.
Thanks,
And,
dude.
and if
I
you,
know though I made mistakes, but I am getting the hang of it. Actually, I'm pretty proud of that.
yeah, I struggled with it for a little bit when I was handed the reins from Kiona, and eventually I found my kind of niche, as it were. Even though, admittingly, I will say you are way better at maintaining the consistency more than I did, and that mostly equates to what it's been like with me,
Which
because ever since the last one, it's
which keep in
go
mind,
ahead.
Josh, that hasn't always been easy for me either, because sometimes my classes do get in the way. Sometimes stuff prevents me from uploading the episodes as early as I would have wanted to.
And I think that's normal. I mean, for me, I had like so many things to juggle here and there, and then there was December where I stepped away to shoot roulette, which has been rewarding, but at the same time, I'll admit that was a month I really dropped the ball, but that's neither here nor there. It's been kind of a contributing factor as to why I haven't really done much content in general. And I genuinely think that in some ways I'm probably at my most cynical now than I've been in quite some time. Crystal actually thankfully shook me out of that by just yelling at me, but in a loving way, not in a you asshole kind of way.
In a very Crystal way.
Yeah,
This in a very
she's like a
Crystal way. You guys know how she is.
Hmm.
she just she just
But
acted as your gym coach.
oh yeah, and this year has just been it has probably been the most distressing year I've had so far in my nearly 24 years of life on this earth. To put it bluntly, I've had to come to terms with some things about myself as well. Not necessarily in that way like Jacob did, but just more kind of acknowledging what I've been feeling. Because those of you guys know me as I try my best to be as optimistic as possible. I try my best to be very, on the podcast, I love like having fun and everything like that. Sometimes I let those insecurities get in the way, like especially the few times I've popped up recently where I think, am I just flanderizing myself? Am I going into like this caricature of what I was like back when I was on the site like a lot, or am I really feeling this way? And it's just like, am I just getting too caught up in my own head? It's been like that, but like not just contained to the podcast, but stretched out through the whole year. Um, for one thing, I ended up back at work at my old job that I had before I started the site, as well as in between when I was really in the neck of the woods of being the managing editor for Renegade Pop Culture. And you leave a job once and you hope you never have to come back to it again. And then you come back to it again and you tell yourself, it's just this one time.
Mhm.
And then it keeps going, and it's just the third time you go back and it's like, I am just here to get a paycheck. The motivation is completely gone. It's just fight or flight at this point. And then for one thing, we realized that, as you can see, I showed off in the last episode I was in with I think it was the marquee for Doctor Strange. We moved to a new place, which is great, but the move was expensive, and that is not so great. It's a lot of money, and on top of that, we got everything done in a stupidly short amount of time. We did 2 months worth of packing in 3 days
Wow.
because
Wow.
it was literally down to the wire about getting this house. We decided not to renew our lease at the apartment because, quite frankly, it was bad. It was starting to get worse. It was roach infested. They barely fixed anything, and then on top of that, we had a lot of problematic neighbors. And I mentioned this, I think, in the group chat, but my next door neighbors that we grew really close with, or neighbor that we grew really close with, her apartment just caught fire because of her complicated ex-boyfriend thing that was going on. And that was literally next door in the literal sense. You step outside, their apartment is right there. I was awoken at 3 in the morning by the fire alarm. And it was equally distressing because me and Crystal have been doing Delta 8 to relax, which has helped out a lot. Don't worry, I'm not in my Seth Rogen era or anything, despite the fact that the beard is getting more patchy. But I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit as Crystal calls it, zooted, trying to sleep because I knew I had work early in the morning. And I hear a beep, 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 and I'm just thinking, it's probably a phone or something. But then it still stayed, and I figured maybe it's our place, it'll go away after a while. But it kept going. And then I got up, and because I was a little bit zooted, things were moving in even more of a slow motion pace than they normally would. I'm walking out to the living room, and I start to hear rumblings coming up from up the stairs, and I just hear out of like my peripheral auditory thing, I just hear the neighbor's ex-boyfriend thing kind of coming up the stairs saying, "Yeah, I got a fire at blah, 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 blah place." And me and Crystal just grabbed as much as we could and got the hell out of there and went to my mom's place for the night. It was fine, but it was like, all right, we need to get out of here.
Mhm.
But there were two bigger things that have, in addition to financial struggles and everything, that have kind of rocked me recently, and I remember we were going to record something. We were going to record this a lot earlier, but thankfully everyone, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like everyone kind of had this air of, I am not ready to kind of air everything that I've been feeling out there right away. And just, I don't know, like I said, I speak for myself, but that's what I felt like, and I was so thankful because these other two things really started to eat away at me. And the first of which is that another reason why 2022 has not been such a hot year is my grandfather, Manuel Villarreal, died a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, and it's kind of really affected me emotionally because he, by all intents and purposes, was my father. Longtime fans of the podcast know that I'm adopted, and I was raised by my mom and my grandma, so my grandpa was really my only prevalent male figure in my life. I'll be honest, with the exception being maybe Kiona, and that's because Kiona is like a brother to me. And, you know, everything flooded in, and I just started thinking about my relationship with him and how, in a lot of ways, he really did make me the man that I am right now. But, you know, I started to think back about how I saw him when he was alive, because the last time that I really spent the night with him, I spent the night with him when I was 9, sporadically in the summers. I would spend the night with him when I was 9 to when I was, I want to say 14 or 15. And it was very much an escape, but, you know, there were just certain times where I thought about the man he was, because he was a very crass man. I'm not gonna lie. You know, he loved Frank Frazetta paintings. I want you to take of that what you will. He loved Frank Frazetta paintings, and he had stacks of heavy metal magazine, like the comics and all that. And he was also, when I was growing up, he was in his 50s, and he just casually had, you know, like he had subscriptions to Playboy and Hustler and Penthouse and all that. So he was kind of the prototypical pervy old man, but in a way that was very endearing. But, you know, raised by nothing but women, it was kind of a lot all at once. And he was a rock star too. Not a rock star, but, you know, he loved guitar, he loved music, he loved painting and drawing and all that stuff. And it was such an extreme thing that, for me, kind of a sheltered kid who didn't really know a lot about kind of a male outlook on the world for the most part, it very much kind of hit me all at once. You know, he was I feel like we're gonna get demonetized already, but we're not even in the partnership program. So I'm sorry, Kiona, and I'm sorry, viewers, that may be a little bit put off by this, but, you know, here he was, this, you know, old man, but, you know, fun, kind of like a guy you'd see at a bar, but in one of those playful drunks. You know, even though he wasn't drunk, he was stone sober by the time, you know, I started spending time with him. That was a thing in the family. He was an alcoholic for a long time, but then when I came into the picture, he was sober. He would ask me like, you know, have you played Stinkfinger yet, or anything like that. He he was a perv, and he asked if I had a girlfriend. He asked if I had done this and that, and I would say, I'm 12. But, you know, he also helped me break down walls about myself, and, you know, gave me my own morals, because as much as it can be overwhelming, he really did have he had some words of wisdom, of course, to share. And I think I realized too late what he was doing to help me mature, because I had that horrible age that I think everybody goes through where they discover curse words and all that, and they think I'm a badass because I can say fucking shit. And you would throw it in every single sentence when it doesn't really need to. And, you know, everyone's just like, and then he was the only person to ever call me out and say, why are you saying that so much? I know you're trying to say it to sound, you know, grown up, but it doesn't really make you grown up. If anything, it makes you feel more childish when you don't say it without meaning. And I really thought about that for a long time. And, you know, when I approached relationships, you know, there was a part of me that never wanted to talk to him about it because I didn't want him to be a pervert about it. But I mean, the joke is on me because up until he died, he had been with his stepwife with his wife, my step grandma, for a cool 20 years. And that's more than I can say for anyone in my family who never really had relationships and never really did much, you know? And I thought about just how sometimes I worried that he was not proud of me for what I wanted to do. Everyone in my family was always a bit iffy about me being a director, and they were iffy about me wanting to pursue this as a career. And he was no exception, you know. He loved it when I got into music, but he also worried about, you know, me having a safety net to fall onto, go to college, this and that. And of course, I dropped out of college. And, you know, I doubled down on my directing, you know, just trying to make movies. And I remember as a kid, he understood being artistic, but he didn't understand the type of art I was trying to make. And I remember as a kid, he said at one point, you know, when you see usual people, like normal people walking around, because, you know, of course you'll know the movies, Josh, because that's your passion. But for the average Joe, when they walk around, they'll say like, man, did you see Brad Pitt in that movie? He really acted the shit out of that. But you rarely will ever hear someone out there in the wild say, man, that guy really directed the hell out of that movie. And I think the ultimate irony is that I surround myself with a lot of film people, so I hear that regardless. But, you know, he had a hard time understanding it, and I worried that he wasn't proud of me. But those days of seeing him in the hospital were the roughest. He had a stroke, and that left him in palliative care. And that I don't know if you've ever been to anything like that, but you know, you go through this I think they called it a nuke ICU or something like that, and that's basically for the people that are just bedridden and catatonic or something like that. And my grandpa had lost a few things in his life. He lost both of his legs due to infection from cats that they had, you know, just things happened and it just spread. And I tried to prepare myself walking in, but I still looked shocked kind of walking in and just seeing him completely locked in place. And I have to tell myself this because it's the only thing that keeps me like kind of chuckling. He looked like the equivalent because he had a stump on one of his legs and the on the other was the ankle was completely gone. And he kind of looked like the equivalent of the mannequins from Silent Hill 2 when they lock in place in the streets. It's cosmically funny in my opinion, but you know, it's also unbelievably scarring. And Crystal was there, but he could understand what I was saying. And I talked with him, and I figured this would be my last time to talk with him because I'm busy all the time with work and everything, just trying to get everything going and make sure that we survive. And I let everything out, and I told him that despite all the times that I was worried, he really was the best male figure I ever had in my life, that he really was a father to me, and that You know, there was so much I wished we could do. I wanted to. s- he went into the state just before the Beatles Get Back premiered on Disney Plus, and I remember that was something that I told myself, no matter what, I'm gonna watch that with Grandpa, because when I was a kid and I was into music and I wanted to be a guitar player, he told me about the Beatles' "Let It Be," that old documentary about the making of that album, and he told me to buy it, and I bought it, and I watched it for him, and I figured him knowing that there was going to be more of that would have been inspiring, and he loves music documentaries and shit like that. And it was beautiful, and I wanted to watch it with him, and he never got to see that, and I never got to have that moment. And saying all of this, I told him that I was proud of him for how he changed for the better, because despite everything that I've said, he was one of the nicest, sweetest men that you will ever know in your life. And everybody was, family can be so judgmental sometimes, and they can hold things in the past over you. And some people just will refuse to believe that people can change. I mean, it's the reason why Twitter exists. And I told him that despite everything that he had done in his life, here he was, and he was, even though he wasn't you know, free, he at least had a clean soul, and that he was a better man now than he was back then. And I was so proud of him for changing, and I was proud of him for being my grandpa.
Mhm.
And talking all of that, of course he was breathing, he was trying to say something, but he was nonverbal, he couldn't talk. But I felt a finger squeeze my pinky, and that at least told me that he understood what I was saying, that he could hear me. And I'll be honest, that was the last time I saw him, and I was busy, and when I wasn't busy, I was bone tired, and I never got to see him. And I told myself I wanted to be there for when they would pull the plug, because they had talked about, yeah, this was going to be it. But then the day came, and I was not able to go because I was working. But truth be told, if I did go, I don't think I could have had the stomach to be in the room when it happened. Thinking about Grandpa and everything that we did, because it was a lot of, I said a lot of like really off kilter stuff, but we had the most fun. I remember he adored art in every sense of the word, and even as an old man, he loved animation, and we would watch Tom and Jerry shorts from the little compilation discs, and Looney Tunes, and just any random stuff. He had the Ralph Bakshi movies, and he had Titan XE, and he also bought the Tinkerbell movies, mostly for my step grandma, but he also loved that stuff unironically, and he adored sci-fi. He adored sci-fi. He was a big Star Trek guy, Next Generation, of course. And ironically enough, that's also why I jumped onto the interviews that we did with Starlight people, because I remember one of them had done the comic based on the movie Surrogates.
Yeah.
I remember
Mhm.
watching that with Grandpa, and even though it's not even a good Bruce Willis movie, not even a good Bruce Willis sci-fi movie, it was still something special that I had with my grandpa. And I remember at one point, and I remember this vividly, because it felt so out of character for me to say at 9, 10 years old, but I remember saying, I feel like I'm gonna remember this. just you and me sitting down watching sci-fi movies together. This just feels like something that's going to stay with me. And I know what you're thinking. That's probably the last thing anybody ever said about surrogates, but you know, it was probably one of the things I held dearest. That and a book that he gave me, which I swear with all my power, when it enters the public domain, I will try to make it a thing. He gave me his oldest book that he had at that point. I think it was that or a book that had the short stories of Ernest Hemingway. I have that one too. It was a copy of The Once and Future King by T.H. White. And it has this inscription that he wrote for me all those years ago, because that was when I first started staying over at his apartment at the time. And it says, "To my grandson, for the ages." And thinking about my grandpa and his short life and the little bit of time that I had with him, it's gotten me to this feeling that I have a bit of a quarter life crisis. I feel like, and I'm sorry to say this, but Fiona, this is probably gonna be the only time I'll ever say something like this explicitly to you. I feel like you're gonna listen to this and be like, "Oh, you sweet summer child. It can only get worse from here." But you know, I'm gonna be 24 this year. And, you know, I live in movies, I live in all of that. And they always say that like your early 20s is kind of like your twilight years. It's like your, you know, the years that you get to have the most fun. And in all of this, I had this horrifying realization that ever since 2019, 2018, 2019, when I, you know, dedicated myself to, you know, working and all that, literally ever since I was 20, I have not stopped working that grind, as they say. You always hear grind culture. Yeah, just focus on the grind, and you know you'll grow to bigger and better things. But I'm so fucking tired. I've been working full-time jobs, if not full-time jobs, then part-time jobs, and if not part-time jobs, then little things to try and get money floating, and I'm constantly in this perpetual state. I'm gonna be 24, and you can't see it now because Crystal's been picking them out. I've been graying, and I'm constantly stressed about money and everything, and whether or not we're gonna make rent or anything. Even now, because of the move, like a lot of the settling in fees kicked in, and you know, a lot of my money left, and on top of that, I didn't get paid for 2 days off I had of bereavement leave. I don't know why, but you know, it made the paycheck a lot less, so I'm barely able to make bills. And I only have like 30 something dollars until my next paycheck in 2 weeks. And it just made me feel very sour thinking about everything. And it's also why I haven't been doing much in general, because it's cost me to look at everything even before 2022, and how I just feel incredibly burnt out and just dog tired with everything, to the point that sometimes being with friends, although it fades away in the moment, but being with friends sometimes feels like clocking into another job. I've been playing D&D, and that's been a lot of fun, but at the same time, there are some times where going into a session, sometimes after work, because that's the one time that everybody has off, you know, I come in and I immediately get to acting because it's the closest thing I can get to acting. At least it's far. And again, it just feels like clocking in. It feels like work. It feels, again, like overexerting yourself. And I started to feel myself just kind of feel distant from everyone, and I worried that I couldn't talk to anybody about this stuff for a good while because it made me sound like so cynical and negative, which is the last thing I want to be. But at the same time, sometimes the thought of talking to people, even for a little bit, just feels so exhausting and scary because it feels like I'm going to overload and it's going to be overbearing and I'm going to push people away, or that I have to dredge up these things because I know that if I hold on to it, it's going to eat me up. And when Crystal yelled at me, she said, "This is fucking cynical. You got to stop this because I know this isn't you. You were literally just fine like minutes before I had talked to her about all of this stuff." And I was. And the thing is, I know I'm not always like this. I'm not always this dour. I try not to be, but I've been finding it so hard to be happy sometimes. And I even talked to Kiona about it fairly recently. And there's sometimes where I feel genuinely happy, but they feel like fleeting seconds. And then later on, I can't remember the last time I was happy. And I was thankful that Crystal took me out of that slump, because there's a part of me that is very happy that she isn't here for this, because I hope to God that if she listens to this, it'll be down the road. But there was a point, like, as I was saying everything to her, I said this to a close friend of mine recently, as I was saying all of this and I was just getting all this ugliness out of me, I looked at her and she seemed just like another body. And I only get like that when I feel absolutely shitty. When I feel just absolutely, unbelievably, ungodly, inconsolable. And when she snapped me out of that, I saw her again. And just maybe I should make some friends, and making friends is hard, especially as you get older. And creating just feels tiring as well. Truth be told, it's the main reason why I haven't finished the rough cut of Roulette, or even remotely finished the script for the Kingdom Hearts video. I was like halfway done and then I just stopped, because I don't want to confront who I was as a kid, because I know he's a different person now, and I know that he would be disgusted to hear me say these words and thinking these thoughts. I'm sorry, that was that was a lot. And everything kind of creeped up at the end of the Doctor Strange review too. And that's because like that was right when everything just kind of imploded. And I'm sorry, I feel like I kind of sucked all the air out.
That's all right, man. That's exactly why we have this platform. This is your opportunity to just let it all out.
Yeah. Josh, you know, with all the hell that you've been through, like, you know, I prefer that you do, actually, you know, because I know you and Crystal have been through hell and back, and yeah, you know, yeah, I'd be insulted if you didn't unleash.
That's another thing I forgot to mention. The start of this year, literally the exact start, me and Crystal got COVID. Literally, it was December 31st, right into January 1st. And me and Crystal just felt absolutely horrible. And we were just like, all right, we're sick. It hasn't happened in a while. Okay, let's just medicate ourselves up, which Pro tip for any of you listeners out there: you got to make yourself a nuke, and it will go away like that. Here's how you make a nuke: you get Theraflu, you get lemon ginger tea, in a bag or anything like that, and then you get some cough drops. Pour the ginger tea as well as the Theraflu inside, and then drop in the cough drops in there. Then you pour the hot water, let it seep and swirl around until the cough drops melt, and then you drink it. It is hot, it is steamy, not in that way. And on top of that, it will absolutely knock you on your ass. But I'm telling you, in like 2 days, you heal up like that. But we were getting ready to make some nukes, and we wanted to get our booster shots for COVID because everyone got Pfizer or Moderna, and we got the Johnson & Johnson. So I'm still waiting for the X gene to kick in. But we went to Walgreens to get tested because we had to get tested and prove that we were negative before we got our booster. And then they said, "Oh, you're positive." And me and Crystal, our hearts just sank because it just felt like, oh my God, who have we been in contact with? I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to feel like I could be responsible for someone else getting the bug, And so that was a start to a year. I didn't get the X gene from Johnson & Johnson. Instead, I got COVID months down the line. I almost made it 2 years. That was the sad thing. We were so close to 2 years of being bug-free.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry that you went through all this, and I'm sorry for your loss too with your grandfather. He kind of reminds me of my grandfather as well because my grandfather and I always used to have this like where we lived in Hawaii and stuff. It was kind of near this little outcropping that was like a nature preserve that was kind of nearby our house, and he always used to tell me like when I was a kid, when I was very, very young, um, he always used to tell me like things like that's where he kept his secret alien spaceship, and and also his horses, and also like just these crazy stories and stuff, and like fun stories that kind of instilled in me an appreciation for sci-fi and art and movies and imagination. So I understand your relationship very much with your grandfather. I actually really do.
But the part about music, that was like my grandpa's biggest passion. I unfortunately lost both of them when I was pretty young. My grandpa on my mom's side passed away pretty much like well over 20 years ago. Actually, it'll be 20 years in October. But he loved music, and we loved going to my grandma's house every Sunday because after dinner he would always have like chocolate ready to give us. But yeah, I was only 10 years old when he passed away, and I'd be lying if I said his death didn't affect me in quite a big way.
If I could add, I'm 29 years old and all four of my grandparents are still alive, which I am so lucky for that. I understand that not every people I know. I'm not taking them for granted. I'm really not. Even if my maternal grandfather can be very reserved. He's very introverted. He spends a lot of the time in his chair watching TV. He's not in the best shape. He got COVID last winter. That was scary because he his family has a history of heart problems. In fact, one of his son, my uncle, died when he was 35 from a heart attack, and I know that that's a lot of pain that he and my grandma have been carrying, even though they have been trudging through. They've been real troopers for that, and I do value him. He is a genuinely good man. And my paternal grandparents, my grandfather, he's retired. He's 86, and he actually he worked as a vet at MSU, veterinarian.
Oh.
MSU. He's a very wise man. He's a very hardworking, salt of the earth man. Very wise.
I'll end with two last things because I know I've talked long enough, and I want to hear where Mike's head is at in general.
Yeah.
Off of both you, Kiona, and Jacob. It's honestly beautiful that, Jacob, you still have your grandparents, and
Yeah.
never take them for granted. I'm glad that you don't. It's honestly
Lucky
a
for me,
little.
yeah. Lucky for me, like they were all pretty young when they had my parents. So yeah, they've been. Yeah, my oldest, my grandfather, he's 80. My paternal grandfather is 86 again. Yeah, he's the oldest.
And Kiona, that thing about the spaceship and everything, that reminds me of one thing that my grandpa did for me for a long time, that he still kept it up. Even before everything, he tried to instill it in my nephew, cousin, brothers. God, I won't talk about that. But he started telling me when I was young that he started telling me that when you see black and white movies, it's because the world was literally black and white, and that things literally changed on the day that they were shooting The Wizard of Oz, that they woke up and said, "Holy shit, what is all this? Okay, we got to work this in somehow." And when you're watching the movie, you see the literal transformation when the world was sepia tone or black and white until we got color. And he still told that to my nephews, and
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's great.
The last thing I'll say is that, there have been little moments of light here and there. Just getting to be back on a film set, just directing in general, has been really invigorating, even though it was back in December. And I can 100% thank that to West Side Story, which is, I mentioned in the group chat, it's officially dethroned Django Unchained as my favorite film of all time, because it's just everything I want to make in exactly the way I want to make. But also, probably the happiest thing, I finally got to do something for my biological siblings, because they've always come over to visit me, and I only visit them one other time. And my younger sister, not my youngest, but my younger sister, got married recently.
Oh, nice.
And
Wow.
and me and Crystal and my friend Audie, who's my makeup artist in my movies, we went to Mexico to celebrate the wedding. It was this little get together, nothing too big. It wasn't at a hall or anything like that. They literally got married at the courthouse and then had a little private party at one of their houses. Like, I think my biological grandma's house. And it was so beautiful, and it was so lovely. She looked like a literal vision, and she had a smile on her face the whole time I was there. Everybody was singing Mexican karaoke, which made me feel self-conscious because I know my voice is terrible and I can't speak Spanish, let alone sing it. So I did not get up and serenade the family. But, it it was just so lovely and beautiful, and we sat around on these chairs that were obviously, bought at a local department store. We had asado, which is like the spicy pork, and rice and beans, of course, and we had Mexican beer, which hits different than any other beer in America. But probably the funniest thing, and I briefly teased this on in the after talk of the Doctor Strange thing, when we were heading back, Crystal nearly got detained by Border Patrol.
Oh boy.
Oh God.
And this is where I'll say this, yeah, because this is where I was leading to. Friggin', we go in, and I got worried because I'll be honest, I couldn't find my birth certificate in time. You need to have a proof that you're an American citizen when you go back from Mexico to the US, which going in, it's no problem. They will not stop you just as long as you've got like pesos or something. Even then, coins. Even then, probably not. Coming back, there's like a troop that will see you like, hey, are you American? Yeah? Okay, go on in. And that's because you gotta, at that point, then you gotta reach the final boss of, returning to the US, and that is the Border Patrol agents posted literally at the door between you and the US of A. And I remember one of the times that I went, I had my birth certificate, and I was just sweating bullets because they were grilling me that I didn't have a passport, which, in fairness, barely anyone in El Paso has a passport. That's not a judgmental thing. Just literally almost everyone I've talked to has said, just bring your driver's license and your birth certificate, you're golden. But I remember the last time I went, there was this one agent, and she really gave me, the business, have a passport. So I was walking through, no, it was a guy, and I was walking through, and I see another guy. I see a guy and a girl, and I'm thinking, please, dear God, let me get the girl. I got the guy. I go up. What was your purpose in Mexico? Oh, I was just at a family event, a wedding. It was my sister's. Did you bring anything with you? No. Can I see some identification? Show him my driver's license. All right. So I passed by. I didn't have to show any birth certificate or anything. My friend Audie passes by, and I want you to keep in mind, we're both fairly dark. But we pass by no problem, and Crystal goes with the girl, and I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be in and out, no problem. And the girl stops her, and the exact line of questioning was pretty much as follows. Where were you born? The U.S.? Where at? Do you live here? Yes. Where? In El Paso? What state? Texas? Where were you born in? Yuma, Arizona? I thought you said you were born in El Paso. No, I thought you said you lived in El Paso. Yes, I do. I was born in Yuma, Arizona, and then I moved to El Paso. Do you have any identification on you? Shows the driver's license. Got anything else? I have my social security card. That doesn't prove that you're an American, though. You my ID. I mean, and then she's like, ma'am, can you come with me? And they took her to another room. They handcuffed her and they frisked her. And again, keeping in mind, me and my friend Audie are fairly dark. And I love Crystal to pieces. But I'm sorry, she looks like a white girl. She looks like somebody who could be an extra in Riverdale. She looks like a cast member of 13 Reasons Why. She just happens to have some mocha in her, but it's not outward. She's got all that white privilege on her. And yet they thought that she wasn't an American. She didn't even have an accent or anything like that. And then me and Audie, my friend, we were just there like, oh, what's going on? Oh, it's okay. If she's really an American, then she'll be out and no problem. Well, can we be with her? No, actually, you need to go ahead and step outside. You already cleared. So I was just fuming outside the border, just pacing back and forth like, oh my God, I'm going to kill them. I'm going to kill them. But obviously I'm not going to kill them because they'll kill me. And then after 10 minutes of waiting, and I had a friend of mine that was picking me up, she walks out. And we're like, oh my God, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. What happened? Oh, they took me in the back. They realized I was a US citizen, and then they just gave me the business about getting a passport. They frisked me, which thank God it finally happened. A woman finally frisked me, but it was not the way that I wanted, damn it. Little flashes of light here and there. That's what I got. But that's what we've been hyping up. And now the world finally gets to hear how Crystal Faith Gillum had her criminal arc in her 2020 development.
Good to have a little levity
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
in an otherwise kind
In a
of
Very
dark year.
bleak situation.
Yeah, like, and I always like it. Like that tends to happen when we do these things. You know, at first it gets kind of bleak, but then we always find a way to brighten things up.
Yeah, of course. All right, Mike.
Oh boy.
Truth.
I think a lot of us can agree that 2022 has been not the greatest year.
Not the best.
Yeah.
No.
For me though, again, it kind of started back in February when I got COVID.
Oh,
Jeez.
Luckily it wasn't that bad. The worst days were the first two, where I was just kind of feeling just completely out of it. Started with like a throbbing headache, then a sore throat, fever, pretty much all of the symptoms, and even took a couple days off from work, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, that was not fun. But luckily, it only lasted. The worst of it only lasted a few days, and then, other than a lingering cough, like for a couple weeks, I was pretty much on the mend. But a lot of what continues to make 2022 just the absolute worst is everything going on with the conflict between the Russia and Ukraine. For those who don't know, my day job, which I'm beginning to despise each and every day, I work for the Bank of New York Mellon as a compliance analyst, which means I'm making sure that every payment that comes through, complies with all of our various sanctions. So anything from, Iran, Syria, Cuba, and now Russian payments, we make sure that like those don't go through, or if they do, they have like the license to do so. So I want to say back in February is when this all started, and since then work has just been a nightmare. Every day I've had to work X amount of hours of overtime, which has drained both time and energy that I would rather devote to other things, such as the website. And it has honestly just put me in a very, very sour mood, on top of other things, like, one of the reasons why most of our content now has been pretty much just reduced to the animation podcast and the jukebox is because both of those can take a lot of prep time, but also I'm just so drained from working my full-time job. There's not really much energy left to do much else. And that's something I'm trying to work towards restoring. I want to be more, I want for this website to thrive. This is something I'm never going to give up on. Even when we reach like rock bottom. But also, if I didn't have this platform, I would end up being more miserable because I would only have the job and nothing else.
Yeah.
I can attest to that. Doing
Yeah.
full-time work, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, and trying to juggle that with like not only the website, but even managing a kind of social life. Again, with the pandemic, that makes things another hurdle. Just I think I'm about this close to just completely breaking down, and I hope I don't actually reach that point. I want to be able to have a healthy work-life balance. But also, if we're being completely honest, given the choice between working a full-time job and committing full-time to this, I think it's clear which one I would rather be pursuing.
I can agree with that, Mike. I really can. Yeah, I've been having to reduce the hours of, I still work in retail and home goods. No, not home goods, TJ Maxx. And
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And I've reduced the hours like for the advertising class, and also just for my own mental health, because having autism and working in retail, it can get pretty intense sometimes when you have like really big orders to do, and like big transactions that you have to take care of. I just pray that it is stuck. Like, I feel like I should do so much. I should be doing so much more with the degree that I have. But the thing is, like, I am helpful that this podcast is. Like, I'm contributing to something that it gives me something to latch onto, even if we're not exactly like IGN level status of yeah,
Few
but
people are.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
very few.
But the thing is, it is giving some. I'm still doing other projects. Like, I'm still, Tyler. She still has me look at her scripts for her history series. I actually even got to record a voice for that. Like, I got to read a quote for her script. Actually, that was nice. Apparently, I never knew voice acting would be another venue that I would be partaking in, but
that's cool.
Maybe I should give you a preview of what she had me read. It was because it was like, it's about the Eastland sinking. Okay, it's about the Eastland sinking. Do you guys ever heard of the Eastland the sinking of the Eastland ship?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
It's something that she's really passionate about, and I did the voice for like this doctor who witnessed it, who's actually from Michigan. She chose me specifically because of my Michigan accent, and I read this letter. It went like this. Okay, this is how I delivered it. People, both on the boat and on the pier, screamed, and some woman fainted. When this event occurred, my wife and I were standing on the pier. the effect of this action on the part of the Eastland was never entirely overcome as long as I resided there. There.
Wow, that was good.
Yeah,
That
it's like
was great. Oh
yeah,
my god.
I tried to sound
Oh, God.
very I tried to sound like flustered, you know, like this was something like I witnessed people die and I was just trying to like compose myself, but like I'm recounting a very traumatic event, you know, and that was actually and I got to read the From Hell letter from the Jack the Ripper episode. That was fun because
Oh
I had
man.
yeah, I did it in the most exaggerated, like I tried to sound like a drunk Cockney man. They're like this creep, this deranged. I won't say it out loud that that'll give you nightmares probably. like it was fun. It was really fun. Like I actually based it off of um um The Conjuring 2 Old Bill's voice, if you guys have seen that one.
Oh, nice.
Oh God.
Have you
I
guys, Josh, have you seen that movie?
I know what you're talking
A while
about.
ago, yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
There was a crooked man. He walks a crooked mile. That voice.
It
Oh,
could
that's
be
that's great.
it could be so much worse though. I mentioned before that I did the voice acting for that Sonic video, and voicing Miles, Tails,
Tail Prower.
Prower. I almost said Dixon. That's
You also,
Terminator.
you also did a voice for you voiced Zack Snyder in Gwen's video. I remember that.
And
That's
that
right.
was that was the time that I really did try to sound as close to Zack Snyder as possible. And it is honestly horrifying that Zack Snyder has actually seen the video, which means he has heard me imitating him. And
Jeez
I'm just
Louise.
thinking, if I get to Hollywood and I get to meet the man, I have to confront that fact. Probably just say, "Hi, nice to meet you. We've never met, but you've heard my voice. I read a quote that you said once about Batman in prison."
Oh
Um,
boy.
oh God, I
But-
know what you're talking about.
But yet, that is not nearly as embarrassing for me as voicing Miles Prower, which I realized talking with the guy I did the video for. I never realized that was the joke. Because he was never supposed to be called Tails, and his name was Miles Prower because it was a play on miles per hour.
Oh,
Miles per
Wow.
hour. Yeah.
But doing that whole thing and nearly killing myself because I had to hit such a high register, and I'm still not proud of how I sounded, but I remember I had my friend Audie, who's actually in the other room for Crystal's Girls Night, and she's a huge Sonic fan. She literally calls herself like Amy online because Amy. And she told me for Tails, sound like Shippo. And that was what I aimed for. And there's a whole video about like the bloopers. There was a point where, we're doing that dumb meme, cruising down the street with my boys super jacked or something like that. My line was, "It's getting really hot. Yeah, these bars are super heat." And joke is like somebody gets really sad and crashes the car. So I decided to throw myself with that, like, all right, Tails would probably be scared. And I remember I did the voice acting while Crystal was like in the other room doing like a test or something like that for school. And just the sound of me going, "No, Amy, no!" It just shook everybody. And that's forever. You can hear Audie saying, "If you do that again, I'm done," or something like that. And I said, "No, but I got to do this. It's the extra mile."
Speaking of Sonic voice actors, at this convention, Roger Craig Smith was there.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
And he was doing a Q&A, and there was this awesome cosplayer. He cosplayed as Robotnik, and he was just uncanny how he looked just like him. We had a lot of fun talking with him. His name was Nathan. We were waiting in line for us to open the gate, and this Robotnik cosplayer, he had his phone on him, and like he played Where Evil Grows by the Poppy Family on that phone while we were waiting. I like the way you smile at me, like, you know, that song. And he even did the zip zip, and that was actually the day after I saw Sonic 2 in the theater. Actually, that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
It was better than the first one. And by the way, Roger Craig Smith, he was it was a Q&A there, and I asked him what he thought of Chris Pratt voicing Mario. Needless to say, like, he's not that enthused by it. But he does understand it in a way. He does. Just because Chris Pratt is such a huge name, and although he is disappointed because apparently to him Charles Martinet is a very lovely man.
You gotta get the proper Italian representation, and nothing screams the beaches of Italy. Nobody has more olive oil in their blood than Christopher Pratt.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing a cat who eats lasagna, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Doesn't get more Italian than that.
Yeah. Although one cast, I should have asked him. I do think we can all agree that Jack Black as Bowser is pretty good.
I think that's probably the one I'm the most genuinely excited for.
Actually, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. No, I'm sorry, no.
It was Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong for me, followed by Charlie Day as Luigi, and then Jack Black as Bowser.
Yeah.
So I'm always happy to see Anya getting work because, well, I mean, she's beautiful, and I'll love her in everything.
I can, if she plays Peach like she played Emma, that would actually be really good.
Yeah, that actually would be perfect.
Like that kind of snarkiness, that kind of, you know, like the way she just talks down to everyone. She definitely give Peach way more personality than she usually has in the games.
Yep, I hear it in the distance. I hear the monkey's paw lowering ever so slightly as I say that whole thing about Anya. Oh, I'll love her in anything. I'm going to wait for that to bite me in the ass either this year or next year because I know it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see on that. But since we are kind of heading towards the end of this, like previous episodes, I do kind of want to end on asking everyone what sort of, well, two things. A, what sort of media, be it movie, TV, or just anything, has kind of helped you like, you know, either get out of your funk or just bring you some sort of comfort? And then the second thing is, what sort of advice do you have for others for dealing with whatever they're dealing with? Jacob, I'll start with you.
Actually last night, I got a lot of Criterion movies that have been sitting on my shelves I've never really gone around to just because I was too busy. Last night I watched Time Bandits for the first time. That's such a good movie. I freaking loved that movie. It was the most fun, it was the most whimsical, fun, like, also it's just, it has such an edge to it as well. It's basically a 2-hour Monty Python sketch. It's like a heist movie. It's like a robbery. It's so much fun. It's such a fun movie. I freaking love it. And lucky for me, there's other Criterion movies I still have to get to. I'll show you guys a photo maybe sometime, but it's a treasure trove of material I have that I want to get around to. For advice, just don't forget to love yourself. Don't forget, that your flaws are what make you human. When you feel like you have nothing to offer people, that you feel like that, that you can never improve yourself, or that you can never, that, your flaws just bring you down, even that your flaws just, that you keep comparing yourself to other people. Just remember that there is beauty in your flaws. That there are some flaws that are just a fundamental part of you. No matter how hard you try to overcome them, no matter how hard you try, you just got to embrace yourself more. That's something that I've learned more to do a lot recently.
Well
It's
said.
not easy. It's not easy, but I try to. I always gotta embrace myself every now and then.
Well said. Kiona, what about you?
Okay, so for me, it's been I've been rereading some old comics digitally, of course, because it's easier that way to keep track of things these days. But I've been going through the old Age of Apocalypse storyline in X-Men, which has been a lot of fun to reread. It's very much a product of its time, of the 90s, but I kind of love it, and I kind of miss that style of comic book storytelling. Also, what else has been giving me joy? I would say tech videos on YouTube. Just watching stuff about like phones and earbuds, and like just keeping up with like little things that are going on with like the iPhones and stuff like that. That's been very cool to see. And this weekend, Star Wars Celebration.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, that's been a lot of fun to kind of watch, and today I really enjoyed it. Just watching like Ewan McGregor get up there, Hayden Christensen get up there. I mean, I'm not a fan of the prequels because that was, I'm an original trilogy guy, but the it's nice to see people have turned around on that and actually give Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor and all those, a lot of the guys that acted in the prequels some love, because even though there was like there was some questionable choices in terms of acting and stuff like that, I still say like it wasn't their fault, and it took a lot to make those movies. So it's nice to see people appreciating that effort that they put into it.
I will say, I just before I say, I will say that Hayden Christensen's acting when he's not speaking is actually, there's this subtle, like you can sense the trauma that he's felt and like the rage that's boiling inside him. Like he really sells that in the facial expression sometimes, and I think people take that for granted too often.
I agree. I think that
hear that. Oh,
yeah,
so
I mean he's a really good actor, actually. I think he is. I think he's kind of underrated, if you ask me. Anyway, and then apart from that, I would say Destiny 2 has been a lifeline for me as well.
Nice.
It's fun to just get in there and just jump in and play horde mode for a little bit, the non-horde mode, where you just basically pound on enemies with Solar 3.0. That's always fun. So people who know Destiny will know what I mean by that. But yeah, it's that's kind of been my lifeline. And I would say for advice, I would just say take it one day at a time and remember to breathe and remember to forgive yourself when needed, because I know for me that can be a block. So
All right. And Josh, what about you?
Well, like I said, West Side Story has basically become my new favorite movie of all time, literally up until it was literally the movie that saved me, that made me want to go back to filmmaking. I was actually content with leaving it to the side, just like setting it down, just being like, you know what, Rest Stop kind of fucked me up. Maybe I'll stay away for a bit and just focus on maybe writing or content creation. I don't know if I have it in me to do another movie. And then the trailer came out, and it was. I had been following West Side Story ever since it was announced because it's my favorite musical of all time, and I've always wanted to do an adaptation of it. But when I heard Spielberg was doing it, it was like, okay, hang everything up. I need to see how this goes because Spielberg is basically cinematic Jesus. And, you know, by that also knowing having a degree of separation with me and Rachel Zegler, Maria is really cool too. I know her by association, which is really, really neat. And so I was cheering her on the whole time. And even despite the fact that it has Ansel Elgort, which, wow, having the news about him come out literally a week or so before the Lost Free for All episode happened, it like was finally uploaded, and I pitched the whole CCR biopic where he played John Fogerty.
Oh,
Horrible timing, and then later on Shia LaBeouf. So it's like, I can't win. But I was thinking, this trailer's so beautiful when it finally came out. This trailer's so beautiful. This is everything I've wanted to see. This is how I would have done it. Oh, I want to get back into filmmaking. What should I do though? And then the gun hits the table. Like from that scene in the bar with Riff. And the second I saw that, it was like that moment in Batman Year One where it's like, yes, Father, I will become Rouletta 2022. But it gave me such life, and it made me want to be a filmmaker again. Just every frame you see the love that Spielberg and Janusz Kaminski and all the actors and actresses, especially Ariana DeBose and all of them, just all the passion that they put in, and the set design, the production. But other than West Side Story, because I could go on, and if we ever get to do that musical episode at some point, Michael, I want to go into full detail with that. But the other thing is, I've kept true to my word since Midnight Mass, and I have engaged in more Mike Flanagan.
nice.
I saw The Haunting of Hill House, and I read half of the book, I think, or at least a quarter of the book. And it is a fascinating adaptation, and it's such a beautiful story. The episode that messed me up the most emotionally was probably the one that everybody talks about, episode 6, where where it mostly takes place in real time at the viewing of the body. Those of you who know, especially the last moments where young Nellie is crying and saying, I was crying, I was screaming for you the whole time, but you couldn't hear me. It was like I wasn't there. I was screaming the whole time. I was there and you ignored me. And going off of that and seeing Victoria Pedretti in the background, I think it's okay to spoil it. It came out in 2018.
2017.
17. So I mean, spoilers, but also no. But on top of that, regular show, surprisingly, that and Close Enough were kind of my anchors for when I needed some levity. And right now, me and Crystal are going through Ash versus Evil Dead because I finished the whole series. She's only seen the movies and the pilot. So it's been a lot of fun for her to experience that. And books, Haunting of Hill House, and one that I think it's okay for me to say because you never know if it ends up going somewhere, it will. But Kiona can attest to this, and I'm sorry I never responded to it, but I recently finished my 10th or 11th feature-length screenplay, which is a spec script that was adapting Brian Lee O'Malley's first graphic novel that he ever did, called Lost at Sea.
Ooh.
And if you love Scott Pilgrim, you owe it to yourself to check out Lost at Sea. In my opinion, I love Scott Pilgrim, but I love Lost at Sea so much more. It's about this girl named Rally going on this trip to California from Canada. And she stows away and hitches a ride with some classmates that are going on this like graduation, end of year kind of road trip thing. And Rally is thoroughly convinced that she has lost her soul, or that her soul is there in California, but it's inside a cat, and cats follow her around, and it's this jumbled, discordant mess of emotions and spiraling, but also humor and beauty. And I've described it like this to my producing friend because I really want to make this movie, and if I get to make it, it could be one of the most beautiful things I'll ever make. I've described it to my producing friend as it's what would happen if Richard Linklater went to Charlie Kaufman and said, I want to make a movie with you.
I like the sound of that.
Time is just warped and reality shifts, and emotions are extreme, but it's also quirky and weird and fun. And I guess I could share this last thing just at the very end of the script, because it was so personal to me. At the end, Rally just accepts what comes, as a coming of age story does. And it's this beautiful moment of realization. It's where the title Lost at Sea comes in, because she is literally lost at sea emotionally. And this is what I have, like, just as this. Interior SUV continuous. Rally smiles, that totally Buddha smile, and looks up at the ceiling. She curiously reaches out. There's been a ceiling window there this whole time. She opens it. A song fades out. I am leaning back and running with it, and staring at the stars. Rally stands up in her seat. She peeks out the window. And I'm still debating whether or not this song would stay if I did it, or Style by Taylor Swift, but as it stands, Circles by Post Malone fades in on the radio. The wind brushes against her whole body. Her hair flows in the breeze, the speed of the car carrying her. She closes her eyes, letting the trip take her wherever. I'm 11. I'm 16. I'm 18. I'm a newborn. I'm everyone, everywhere with you, without you. Unbound, set free, in limbo, lost at sea. And as if on cue to bring her back to reality for that brief moment, one of the kids says, wait, weren't we supposed to turn that way? Rally laughs and smiles. The beat drops. You know how that song goes, do, 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 and then his voice comes in. As Rally's face fades away, what remains is a cluster of stars that make up a constellation of Rally's face. Her stars flow outwards, mixing with the other planets and stars in the night. Rally is lost at sea, but not alone. Not anymore. Fade to black, the end.
Wow.
And as far as any advice that I can give, it's been a very rough time for everyone, but I would say there are going to be moments where you will get overwhelmed and you will get snippy, you'll get angry, you'll get depressed, you'll get inconsolable. But just remember that it's only temporary. Everyone is allowed to feel those moments, and it's never unjustified to feel that stress, to feel that anxiety, that anger, that self-loathing. But what's important to know is that they're not what define you. They're not what make you you. It's just a part of you. And that it does get easier. It does get better. And those brief flashes of darkness only make the light that much better. It's okay to feel upset, because there's so much good still around you and still inside you.
Well said. So the next part of the Renegade Animation podcast, we'll be talking about more anime, of course. And I'll go more into detail on the shows that I've been watching on that episode. But outside of like movies and TV, earlier this year, I was introduced to the YouTube channel called Ordinary Sausage. Basically, what he does is like every week he makes a new sausage out of like just like the wildest ingredients. Like he's done like the hot Cheetos sausage. He's done Fruity Pebbles.
Wow.
He does a bunch of like weird. Some of them turned out to be great. Others were like horrible disasters. But I don't know. I just find something comforting in watching this channel, just because it's so ridiculous, yet he clearly has a passion for these weird culinary creations. So yeah, you should definitely check out Ordinary Sausage. Just if you just need something, something frivolous to take your mind off of whatever you've got going on. And as far as advice, really the one thing I can say that I'm sure we can all agree with is, whatever you're going through, just know that you're not alone. You have like you have other people in your life if you do, but really everyone is going through some sort of hardship, and just knowing that you're not alone will help you get through it all. And with that brings us to the end of this mental health checkup. Before we get out of here, Jacob, thanks for joining us. Where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Facebook under Jacob Crable, Krehbiel. I'm also part of the Renegade Pop Culture Facebook group.
And Kiona?
You can find me on Twitter at Kiona Tang. That's KeonaTang.
And Josh?
You can find me on YouTube at JoshBoy64, where I promise I will upload at some point, sometime. You can find me on Twitter at JSH Lozano, where I rage against the dying light that is the 80s pastiche of Stranger Things, as well as whatever happens to be bugging me at this time about everybody trying to do Stranger Things, even in Star Wars. And you can find me on Facebook in the Renegade Pop Culture Facebook group. And you can also find me featured on TikTok in the account DM's Eye View, where some of our highlights from our past D&D sessions are on there, and you can hear me have some sweet character development as my character, a rogue gnome named Rooster Skybound. Yes, the name is intentionally a pun. Or you can check out some excerpts from our Eververse campaign, which is basically one of our friends deciding, what if we just did Ready Player One but good? And I play the man himself, Ash Williams.
Nice.
Groovy.
Oh man, I thought you were gonna say you played the man himself, Ernest Klein.
That would be funny.
Actually, yeah, Josh, you reading Ready Player 2, was it? Ready Player 2. Like, that was, I think, the highlight of the entire Renegade Pop Culture series.
Reading
yeah, that
Armada.
Oh,
that
my
was
God.
fun.
Yeah,
So you guys,
yeah, go on, Mike. Go on. I'm sorry.
you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on Podchaser and the Banana Meter. And we have a YouTube channel. You can also
Yes,
listen
we do.
to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen.
And Pandora, which has
And
been doing really
Pandora.
good numbers for us for some reason. I don't know, man.
We're
It just
coming
took
for you,
over.
Joe Rogan. Step us.
One thing I've noticed recently, the Demon Slayer Mugen Train one has been doing consistently really good.
Yeah.
I know
It's
that one.
still
That
getting
one
the
still
most-
surprises me to this day.
I'm not really that surprised personally.
People are crazy
Because-
for Demon Slayers. I mean, who figured?
Yeah,
You know.
people. Yeah, it's a huge franchise.
And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this installment of the Mental Health Checkup. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.